Story by Afraid Mention 8892. Row 23, no one else. So to start things off, I have flown probably over 100 times for my job, just within the last 12 months. I'm not a stranger to flying, and I don't get sick. This particular flight had been delayed and undelayed probably 3 to 4 times. It was a red-eye flight, so any delays were especially annoying. Once it came in that it was going to be delayed until 1 a.m., I told the gate attendant that I'd rather just get a hotel. They get me the voucher, and I walk off. I forgot my phone charger, so I double back and I'm maximum 3 gates away when I realize they're boarding, so I rushed over there to get a spot again. I've reassigned an empty row to myself, row 23. I was F. No passengers were in any of the 6 seats. As soon as a door is about to close, a very elderly man jumps on board. He gets to row 23 and sits on the side opposite of mine. So now we're both in row 23, but separate sides of the aisle. Now, there was something off about this man. I can't put my finger on it, but he just didn't seem normal. For one, he was matching my outfit. We were both in all black hoodies and skinnies with gray sneakers, which is odd for an old man to be wearing in 100-degree weather. I only did it because I was feeling edgy that day. Not only that, but his eyes are very big and dark, and his skin was stretched tightly over him. I tried not to look too hard, but he stared at me, with his back to his window, for about 5 minutes after takeoff, before he laid down to go to sleep. I didn't think anything of it because sometimes old men are just old men, but it gets weirder. I lay down the same way as him and drift off to sleep. I remember physically waking up when the plane started to nosedive. I said to myself, I'm just going to close my eyes and hope the pilot corrects it. So I shut my eyes and started to drift back off. Probably 5 seconds later, I wake back up and say, "Oh crap, we're still falling." Just as I say that to myself, I start to get the sensation that the plane is nearing the ground. You know that feeling you get right before landing, even with the windows closed? The plane made an impact with the ground that felt like a huge pop and skid. Like the pilots in this scenario were able to get the plane to crash on its belly and not its nose. As soon as it made an impact, and I realized I was still alive, I went to get my seatbelt off, and suddenly, there was just a huge flash of orange, followed quickly by bright white. That's all I remember. The weirdest thing about this is there was no transition. There was no point where I woke up and said, "Wow, that was a crazy dream," and went back to sleep. It was like the crash happened and there was a wormhole, and I'm suddenly back on the same plane, having a completely different dream. That's not the weirdest part. I sat up when we got the announcement that we were landing soon, and I felt like I had been hit in the head with a bat. I've never had a headache like that, and I've never had motion sickness on a plane. My stomach was twisting, and I was trying to rub the headache out of my head when I looked to my left, and the old guy was gone. I looked around all the other rows to see if he had moved, and he wasn't there. I watched to see if he would deplane from somewhere else, but he never did. I looked all around the airport, Dulles, and he was nowhere to be found. I was so sick and disoriented, I spent the next probably 30 minutes hogging a family restroom to myself. I know this sounds insane, and I'm not going to delve into it too much myself, for fear of going crazy. I feel like that plane crashed and my universe shifted. Where did the old man go? Why was I so disoriented? Why don't I remember waking up from that dream? So the pretty obvious quantum immortality situation here. You switch to a different universe after the plane crashed, and the man didn't follow you. So the universe you jumped to, his body was no longer there. It just goes to show that quantum immortality, it is a sort of immortality, but not every universe that we can transition to for ourselves will have the exact same copy of everyone else there. It is a different universe, often close enough that There aren't major changes, but there will be changes nevertheless, sometimes subtle, sometimes you notice big ones. Like people missing, or even friends that you no longer have in this new universe. The worst kind of glitch would be transitioning to a different universe, and then, well, maybe not the worst one, but a pretty bad one is, you're rich in the first one, and then the new universe you're broke. That would be awful. Where are you going to get your food? Now, is the fact that he was an odd old man initially part of the glitch? Like he wasn't really a person, he was just a spirit? An omen of death, you could say? Maybe. I don't know if I really buy that one. I think it's just classic quantum immortality. But who knows? I mean, if your intent as a spirit is to inspire dread, a good place to go would be a plane where a lot of people are already on edge. I don't know if I have a distinct fear of flying. I mean, I went skydiving, as if you saw the birthday picture recently. But it's still the confined nature of being on a plane, and for that ride, you're just stuck there. You can't get off. There's no parachutes, which, that's another thing. There's no parachutes on a commercial flight. Apparently, because of the speed and the altitude that you're at and all that, it wouldn't be practical to jump off, even if you had a parachute. I don't know about that. I mean, might as well have a chance, even if it's low, but The only thing I really hate about flying is the ear popping. Can't stand it. Ugh, terrible. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 9 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. I'll mention my favorite one at the end. Build suspense. Let's get to it. Story by Scar01, The Wind That Rewrote an Afternoon. A few weeks ago, I was in my garden with my family and my girlfriend. We were all eating, and my father was also drinking coffee. After a while, both my father and my brother left to work on something, and only me, my mother, and my girlfriend remained at the table. It was pretty windy outside, so at one point the coffee cup fell off the table. We all saw that it fell to the ground, but we were too lazy to actually pick it up at that exact moment. We stayed for 20 to 30 more minutes, and then we decided to go inside because we had to speak with my grandma. Now that's where the weird thing happened. Before we left, we had to take the plates and the remaining food off the table, so the wind wouldn't blow them away as well. But we somehow all forgot about the coffee cup that was already on the ground. After speaking with my grandma, we went back to the table, and at that exact same moment, my father and brother were also coming back to the table. After that, my brother said that the wind pushed the cup of coffee and stained a wallet that was on the table, and when we looked, the cup was now on the table, with the coffee being spilled all over it. We asked if they picked up the coffee, but they said no. We also saw them arrive at the exact time as us. And we also cleaned up the table before we left, so we would have seen if a quarter of the table was spilled with coffee. And what was even weirder, it was too much coffee spilled out on the table. Even if the coffee cup somehow landed upright, it did not because both me, my mother, and my girlfriend saw it on the ground. It still wouldn't make sense how so much coffee ended up back up there. Story by Takeies, The Last Paralysis. I'll try to explain everything as clearly as I can, even though some details have faded over the years. I was around 7 years old when it all started. For over a month, maybe even 2, I experienced sleep paralysis almost every single night. At the time, I had no idea what sleep paralysis was. I just thought I was having nightmares. At first, I woke my parents up every time it happened. Little by little, I became terrified of going to sleep and started feeling constantly anxious. I shared a bedroom with my brother. My bed was positioned so that a dresser partially blocked the bedroom door. Every single time I experienced sleep paralysis, I saw the exact same man. Sometimes he would slowly open my bedroom door. Other times, he was already standing behind the dresser near the entrance. I could never make out his face. My bedroom was too dark, but I could clearly see his silhouette. His hair looked either very short or slicked back. I honestly couldn't tell, but nothing stuck out from his head. I couldn't see his eyes or any of his facial features. he would slowly walk around the dresser. He never climbed onto my bed. He would simply stop beside it, facing in my direction as if he was watching me. Some nights he would get closer. Other nights he would simply stay at the edge of my bed. Years later, I realized something I had never really paid attention to before. Every single time I had one of these episodes, my bedroom door was actually open. Sometimes I eventually managed to fall asleep anyway. I also often had the feeling that someone was breathing on me after I fell asleep, although I still don't know whether that was real or simply caused by fear. Every morning, I kept everything to myself. Back then, I loved searching through every corner of the house. In our bathroom, there was a mirrored medicine cabinet. One day, for reasons I still can't explain, I felt an almost irresistible urge to look on top of it. It was stronger than me. There were completely ordinary things up there, like towels, but there was also a key. It was an old-fashioned key, one of those large metal keys you see in old houses. The strange part is that nothing in my house used that type of key. Every door either used modern flat keys or didn't even have a keyhole. Even my bedroom door had no keyhole. Directly across from my bedroom, there was an attic hatch in the hallway ceiling. Nobody in my family ever went into that attic. We never stored anything there. It served absolutely no purpose. When I looked up at the hatch, I noticed that it wasn't completely closed. It was slightly open. I remember feeling an overwhelming sense of fear. I still can't explain why, but just seeing it like that terrified me. I didn't tell anyone about it. I simply put the key back exactly where I had found it. Later that day, I wanted to tell my brother because he was the person I trusted the most. In the end, I decided not to. I was already asking him almost every night to check that nobody was standing by the bedroom door before we went to sleep, and I didn't want to bother him even more. That night, I had sleep paralysis again. I saw the same man. The next day, I went back to look for the key because I wanted to know more. It was gone. I hadn't told anyone about it. That's when I started becoming genuinely scared. There's also something important you should know about my father. We didn't have the best relationship, although I didn't really realize it at that age. When I was little, he often made comments that implied I was somehow connected to certain things. He never said it directly. It was always through hints or vague remarks, and whenever I brought up anything related to the paranormal or spirituality, he would look at me in a strange way, almost as if I had just revealed a secret he had been keeping. The strangest part is how everything ended. One night, after another episode of sleep paralysis, I finally managed to get out of bed. Normally, whenever I woke up during the night, I refused to go to the bathroom because I always had an awful feeling the moment I had to leave my room. That night, I couldn't hold it anymore. I was terrified, but I convinced myself it was only because of the fear caused by the sleep paralysis. I walked past the dresser. My heart was beating so hard that even now, I can still feel that fear. I opened my bedroom door. Like every other night, the first thing I looked at was the attic hatch. From where I was standing, I couldn't tell whether it was open or closed, and part of me didn't even want to know. I slowly walked to the corner of the hallway. That's when I saw the top of his head, then his eyes. It was the same man, standing at the top of my staircase. The moment our eyes met, he stood up and started running toward me. I immediately ran into the bathroom, locked the door, and spent the rest of the night there. The next morning, my mother knocked because she needed to get ready. She asked me why I had slept in the bathroom. I never had the courage to tell her what had happened. I never experienced sleep paralysis again. Because of renovations over the years, I can no longer recreate what the house looked like back then, and the medicine cabinet where I found the key was eventually thrown away. Even today, there are several things that still bother me. I never found out what that key was for. When I eventually asked my mother about it, she told me we had never owned a key like that. Years later, when I was around 15, my father admitted that he had practiced spiritism. He told me he had experienced what he described as visits to other universes for short periods of time. He also told me about the man who introduced him to those practices, someone he believed was extremely experienced. According to my father, after one seance that supposedly went wrong, that man, who had practiced spiritism for years, took his own life the following day. My father never wanted to talk about it again after that. To this day, he still regularly meditates or performs rituals that he says help protect his mind and keep his inner self at peace. My mother, who is a very rational person, also told me a story about her own mother. My grandmother is deeply religious, to the point where she used to take me to church every Sunday when I was little. She claimed that when she was younger and living in Portugal, she witnessed one of her friends becoming possessed. She said the person's body twisted into unnatural positions, and they began speaking words that nobody could understand. Finally, when I was around 16 or 17, my best friend, who I considered my brother, tried to communicate with the spirit. He also claimed to have experienced several strange events in his own house. I won't go into every detail, but we both felt an intense cold that was only present on the chair beside us. The candle flame flickered at certain moments, as though it were responding to our questions. My friend also had a device that was supposedly able to generate words linked to a spirit's presence. The words we received seemed to describe a soldier searching for someone. I have no idea whether any of these events are connected. Story by Hey Shoddy, It's You, A Place Left Behind. Before my mom's cousin, who I'm going to call Maria for the sake of convenience, not her real name by the way, passed, me and my mom would all go with her on long shopping trips out of town. One of the towns we frequented had a Walmart, and next to that Walmart there was a small shopping center that had a Dollar Tree, GameStop, Suntan City, and a few other miscellaneous stores. Maria used to make wreaths for different holidays with fake flowers and ribbons, and I would always go into the Dollar Tree with her when she'd go to pick out ribbons and decorations for those wreaths. During one of these shopping trips, I remember asking if I could go into the GameStop as it wasn't too long after my 16th birthday, and I wanted to spend my birthday money on Pokemon merch, so Maria went in with me while my mom waited in the car. And I bought a set of anime socks instead of Pokemon merch because I couldn't afford any of the other stuff I wanted. I still have a pair of those socks somewhere. I haven't gone into that GameStop, but I would stare at it whenever we'd drive past it, and it was there until last year when Maria unexpectedly passed away, and it was just gone. At first I thought they had just closed it or something until I brought it up to my mom, and she insisted it was never there in the first place, so I Googled it thinking she was wrong, and there's literally no trace of it ever existing. Ever. Not only that, but there's other things that are different as well, such as entire events with my friends that we all remember with suddenly no trace of ever happening, entire movies, videos, YouTube channels I know I've watched that apparently never existed, entire chapters in books completely different from how me and others distinctly remember them. Objects I know for a fact I own now seemingly have disappeared out of nowhere, or even old objects I lost or donated years ago randomly appearing out of nowhere. So what I was thinking during this story is, what if it is quantum immortality? The catalyst was of someone you knew very deeply and connected with. Maybe quantum immortality is death adjacent. It doesn't have to be your death. Again, I've been asking myself this often where people die in the same vicinity to each other. I always thought, okay, they have to die at the same time, probably from the same cause, to transition together to a new universe. But maybe not. Maybe if one person it's almost like quantum entanglement. You're pulling the other one with you. A different kind, where it's not just the spin states of an atom. This is pulling the entire, collection of atoms with you, but it's really not the atoms. The thing that's entangled is our souls, not physical matter. So it makes some sense. If a soul depends on someone else, then they would rope them along. But I wonder, what are the rules on that? Can one soul refuse the other? I mean, there's no conscious choice involved. It's our souls that are involved. So who net decides? Is it like the alpha soul leads the beta soul. I don't know. Not something I ever thought I would say, but there you go. Story by Explanation Leather 71. Passwords for no one. This happened a few years ago, but I'm only now thinking about how weird this really is. My mother had this diary, or that's what she called it. It was a small notebook, about the size of a standard wallet. This notebook had almost all of her passwords written down for all kinds of accounts, banks, Netflix, cellular service provider. Basically everything we had at the time in 2019, right before COVID. One day my mother said she couldn't find it anywhere, so she asked me to look for it instead, and I did for days, even weeks, as this was the only thing that had her passwords on it, no Google Passwords Manager. I looked everywhere, under our beds, in between couch cushions, even dark corners with a flashlight, but it was nowhere. Problem is that my house was very small at the time, considering it contained 5 rooms. A small entrance with our jackets and shoes hung up, a connecting hallway. On the left would be my mother's room, on the right would be the bathroom. A few feet ahead is a laundry room. Then there's this one big kitchen that connected with the living room, so I'm going to count those as one room, as it was just one big room, really. On the top right of that living room and kitchen is my room. So there wasn't much to check anyways, and she also never took it outdoors as she never needed to. Ever since then I've moved houses, so maybe the previous owners have found it, but we reset all her passwords, so I'm too worried about it. I'm Muslim, and we have this concept of jinns, another life form that exists on Earth, created by God, just that we can't see them, but they can see and interact with humans, so maybe one just stole the notebook for the fun of it, who knows. Story by Saw Scar 112013. Timing sharp as glass. Best friend called this morning and asked me to come pick her up to spend the day at my house. Her car was in the shop. She called at 8:30 and I told her I'd get her around 10. There was no reason for me to not go right then. I just had a very strong feeling I needed to wait a little while. I was headed to her house on a decently busy highway. I went under an overpass 2 lights before I had to turn to get to her road, and saw a man on the side of the road unconscious. His head was facing toward the road, with his body through the guardrail, and his feet facing towards the ditch. A car had stopped, and a man was walking towards him. As a woman driving alone, I didn't feel safe stopping, but I called 911. They said nobody had called it in yet, and I gave a description of exactly where he was, what he looked like, the type of car of the man that stopped. They said they'd send EMS, and we hung up. I got my friend, and we turned right around to head to my house. Maybe 5 minutes had passed since I hung up with 911. I saw the fire truck and ambulance headed towards where he was, but they hadn't reached him yet. As I passed again, a black trash bag had been tied over the man's head. I turned around to let them know I was the one who had called it in. They were able to get the bag off of his head and wake him up. I doubt I will get an update, but I just keep thinking, if I had not waited until 10 to go get my friend, that someone else may have called too late. So that really strong feeling, I think, was a guardian angel, probably the guardian angel of this person that you saw that needed help, needed someone to call for him. Curious, do our guardian angels talk to each other? Maybe it wasn't his guardian angel directly talking to you or giving you that feeling, but rather liaisoning, what the hell? Communicating with your guardian angel to then pass on the feeling. Because I don't think another person's guardian angel can help someone that isn't their protectee, the one they're supposed to be guarding. Or is it all like communal? There's a bunch of guardian angels and they watch over everyone. Most likely we're assigned one, but something to ponder on for sure. It all comes back to listen to your gut, trust your feelings most of the time, unless there's some extremely obvious rational reason not to. But yeah, often your gut is just either pulling and processing information from your surroundings unconsciously, subconsciously, which is already extremely powerful, or it's even on a meta layer above that with guardian angels and simulation theory feeding you almost cheating information. So always consider it. Yeah. Story by J.D. Vance's Revolution. The police I never saw. Back in the 90s, I was a kid. I don't remember what year it was, but it had to be between 95 to 99. I was probably around 8 at the time, depending on exactly what year it was. I lived in a small town in Florida. I was playing in my room with my stuffed animals. I vividly remember my mom taking me to Ross earlier and buying a far stuffed bunny. I had 2 other stuffed bunnies at home. So I was sitting in my room. I was a kid, so I had no real concept of time. But I feel like I have been playing for maybe 20 to 30 minutes. The door to my room was open this entire time. My mom passes by the room quickly and stops as she catches sight of me and looks startled. Out of nowhere, she starts yelling at me, asking me where I've been. She's been worried sick. The police were here. I am totally confused and keep assuring her I've been in my room playing the whole time. It had only been like 20 minutes. Didn't she think to check my room? My mom tells me it's been 2 hours. She searched the whole house and had been driving up and down the street screaming my name. And this was a small dirt road neighborhood. Directly across the road was the woods. There wasn't enough traffic to drown that out. She said she looked under my bed, in my closet, all of which she would have had to step over me to do, and I definitely would have noticed and asked her what she was doing. I never saw the police that apparently came in. Weirdly, she believed me, but neither of us have ever been able to explain it. Story by H2SO4 Tempest. Between Dust and Dread. I don't really believe in ghosts, so I'm trying to stay logical here, but the last couple of months have been really weird, and I honestly don't know what to think. For around 2 months, my parents have been hearing a strange noise almost every night. It sounds exactly like someone is throwing small stones or dirt from outside. On June 17th, 2026, I heard it myself for the first time. It happened around 11 p.m., and this time it came 3 times. We immediately checked outside, but there was nobody there. No animals and no debris around the air conditioner. The air conditioner has already been checked by a repair technician, so it doesn't seem to be coming from inside it. At first I ignored everything, but then my dad reminded me that after we moved into this government-allotted ground floor flat, every Tulsi plant he tried to grow dried up. We had a Tulsi plant at our old house for years without any issues. Other plants grow here, but according to my parents, flowers and vegetables don't grow well. That could just be a soil issue, so I'm not treating that as proof of anything. Because of all this, my dad called a local pandit. Personally, I wasn't convinced and felt like he was trying to scare us. He performed a few rituals but didn't really say much at the time. Another incident happened 3 days ago. Around 6 a.m., while my whole family was sleeping, we suddenly heard the same noise again, except this time it was much louder. It literally sounded like someone threw a handful of stones and dirt at the air conditioner. The impact was so loud that the air conditioner actually shook, and the water droplets that had formed on it flew onto us. It woke all of us up instantly. We all ran outside, expecting to find something, but once again there was nobody there. No dirt, no pebbles, nothing. Later that morning, while I was checking the air conditioner, I noticed a few dents on the outside of it. I honestly don't know if they were already there or if they're related. Later, the pandit accidentally left some of his books at our house. He came back around 7 p.m. to collect them, and before leaving he said, "That thing will attack you." I honestly thought he was just trying to scare us and didn't take him seriously. Then, around 10 p.m. that same night, my aunt was washing her face when she suddenly screamed. She was crying, shaking, and said her cheek and hand hurt. Even afterward, her right cheek felt warmer than the other one, and she complained that her hand was still hurting where she felt it had been grabbed. Story by No Shime, The Game That Was Never On. To preface, I was 16 when this happened. I wasn't on drugs or drinking, and I can remember this vividly. I'm 18 now, so my memory is credible. To understand why I was able to hear this, you need to understand that my room is very close to the living room. When you walk into my house from the front door, the kitchen is to your left. The living room is right in front of you, and to your right is a hallway. If you make that right and make a left, that's my room. So my room is basically behind the living room. Okay, so this happened during the summer when I was 16. I was home alone. My parents were at work during the day and came home during the evening, and my older brothers were not home, doing God knows what. I was holed up in my room, playing games. My TV wasn't loud, as I always had the volume set to 9, when I heard voices. They weren't some voices in my head, no. They were coming from the TV in the living room, slightly muffled. It sounded like 2 commentators commenting on an NFL game. My dad often records football games to watch them later whenever he gets bored, or if it's just one of those lazy days. Mind you, this was around 1 p.m. in the middle of the day. He shouldn't have been home until around 7 to 8 p.m., nor did I even hear the front door open. And usually when the front door opens, my 2 dogs scurry over to see what's up, and I can hear their paws on our wooden floors. I had paused my game, and the TV was still going on, so of course I opened my door and stepped outside my room. Silence as soon as I did. I rounded the corner, and the TV was off. Dad wasn't there. It's as if it just turned on by itself and immediately shut off as soon as I stepped outside. Would it have kept going if I didn't leave? Who knows? I called my dad, and sure enough, he said he was at work, so of course it only added to my confusion. When he came home, I told him about it, and based on his reaction, he thinks I just made it up. When I told my brother, he seemed to be further solidified that our house is haunted. Keep in mind, I'm the youngest. To this day, I haven't experienced anything like that since that incident. Am I going crazy? Who knows? It would be different if the TV kept playing. After I had left my room, as I can just say it was a tech error, but as soon as I left, it stopped, and I didn't even get to verify if it was ever even on. Okay, my favorite story was the first one. A lot of good ones, but that plain story, quantum immortality, all that, it's just good stuff. Now let's hit the jokes. My buddy set me up on a blind date, and he said, "I'd better warn you, she's expecting a baby." I felt like such an idiot, sitting in the bar, wearing just a diaper. Some people are into that, I won't go deeper. Did my first nude painting yesterday. The neighbors weren't happy, but the front door looks great. If you don't have an HOA and you live somewhere somewhat remote, I just want to buy property there and build like a tower with machine guns and flamethrowers, have a moat. That would be awesome. Maybe not filled with alligators. I want a drawbridge too. Damn, I really want a drawbridge. My wife and I decided we don't want to have kids, so I went and got a vasectomy. But when I got home, they were still there. Damn, that is awful. Bought one of those smart light switches, but it was much too clever, so I replaced it with a dimmer switch. I almost decided to start worshipping paper bags, but decided that would be sacrilegious. More glitches up here. Give them a watch, and I'll see you next time.